Yes, we're still dealing with comprehension and the written text. And while it is very, very important to learn to comprehend or to understand a text, it is equally important to understand and really know what instruction words want of us. We need to understand those if we want to answer questions and get the proper marks in our answer. I'm going to run through a list with you. They're alphabetical, so we'll just do it quickly. So whenever you see the word account or account for, you immediately need to know that you must give a reason. It has to do with why. Give us an explanation as to why things are the way they are. Account for the existence of. If we analyze, it means that we take apart and we really look at aspects of a certain concept in detail. So detail here is the word that you need to understand by analyzing, and also the separate parts. You take it apart and you give me the details of the aspects. If you have to comment on something, you give a personal opinion on something, but it's not entirely emotional. It's not really like with those evaluation questions or so. It's not really judgmental either. It is just your comment on it. So you can say that a certain aspect of the topic was discussed in a certain paragraph, and it's a very good place to discuss it, because after that there's a section that sort of follows. So there's just a comment on why something is perhaps the way it is. It's just comment. It's not emotional. It's not judgmental. Right, so an example, account for the use of the present tense in this passage. Why did the person choose to use present tense in a certain text? For what reason? Think about it. Analyze the author's argument. Remember, we said take it apart and give us a nice description of it. So the argument in paragraph 4 is perhaps on this aspect of the big problem, and you take it apart and you give us a substantial detail on it. Comment on the solution offered by the foundation. The foundation, say in a certain text, had a certain solution to a certain problem, and you can perhaps comment on it and say that that solution was made in 1973, and in those days such and such has not been the case. So it's just a comment, not emotional, right? Then we've got the compare and the contrast words. Compare simply means that you look at two things, you analyze them, you have a look at the essential aspects, and this is the way this aspect is, and then this is the essentials of that. And in these ways they are the same, and in those ways they are not the same. So you look for similarities and differences. Important. Similarities and differences. However, when you contrast, you look for differences only. The one is like that and the one is like that, but we want to look at the contrast. How are they different? And that's all you need to then pay attention to in that question, for instance, is to look at the differences, because that's all they want. They don't want you to look at the similarities. Then instruction words, more of them, and examples. Compare the sentiments of the wife and the husband. The wife might have this idea about vaccination, the husband perhaps that idea, and they both agree on this, but in this way they have differing ideas on vaccination on the one topic. Contrast the views offered on technology in text A and text B. How are the two texts different in terms of their views on technology, right? We've got define, which gives the very, very essence of a concept. In other words, you define it in a very concise way. This is what this is about, in essence. If you have to describe, it's almost like taking define a step further. You look at the essential aspects of it and just sort of describe what these aspects are. So it's slightly longer. You describe it, you make it clear, right? Then you can discuss something. Now you can take the same concept. You have it defined in essential terms. You have described it. You have packed it out. You've described it. You've made it clear, the aspects of it. And then when you have to discuss, you even take each one of these aspects further and you discuss each one of those aspects of the concept. So it's almost as though these three instruction words are sort of interlinked in a way. When you look at distinguish and differentiate, it takes us back to contrast again. We are going to look at the differences. If you have to distinguish the one from the other, I will say that this is an apple because of these features. This is what is essentially an apple is all about. Although this is a strange fruit, we don't know, we got it from the forest, but we don't know what it is. So in a way, it's sort of, but distinguish. In this way, it cannot be an apple because it's different. Do you understand? It doesn't fit the essential definition of an apple. So you distinguish, you separate the two in terms of their differences, or you differentiate. There you've got the different word. If you evaluate, the word that you need to remember for evaluation is judgment. You are actually going to judge. You are giving your judgment. Now you're not just discussing and saying this is what this is all about and I'm giving you the features, I'm giving you detail here. I'm also judging this concept. So evaluate a certain concept means that you give an informed opinion. You are exercising your own judgment and you have an opinion on it. And it's of course measured against certain standards. Examine might be a process that you embark on before you evaluate. When you examine, you look at something in detail. You look at it with a beady eye. You really look at the aspects involved. You examine it. You look at every aspect. And then you might after that say, okay, now that I've examined this, I have a certain judgment about this thing. Explain. The word to remember is clarify, make clear. You must make it clear. If you explain it. So if somebody mentions a certain topic or something and you say, I don't get it. Please explain what you mean. And then you usually use more simple terms and simple words. It's almost like a doctor giving you a certain diagnosis and you say, doctor, speak to me in English. And then he will tell you, it means you're going to have a lot of headaches. It means that you're going to die within a year. So whatever, he's going to give you an explanation of it, making it clear to you in simple words. So it is, you clarify. You can perhaps explain it by means of a diagram. You can explain it through description or by just simply a logical explanation. Fine, then we get to some questions. Explain the main idea in the first paragraph. Make it clear. Examine, evaluate whether the argument is realistic. Examine it. This doesn't seem realistic. I'm taking it apart. I'm examining it, right? Explain. Do you think this article gives a realistic insight into the character's background? When this article was just all about the fun and games of his background, and you know that he had a serious illness and that he grew up in poverty, but that was not mentioned in this article. And then you ask, do you think, explain whether it is realistic. So you're going to give your judgment, but you're going to explain why you have this kind of judgment. I don't think it is realistic because the hardships are not mentioned, right? So then give an outline is easy enough. Just give a brief outline of in a systematic way. It starts here, it goes on there, it moves towards something else. It's an outline, literally, you can picture it. Identify means to pinpoint. Identify something. Out of all these objects, identify the apple. Aha, that one. Okay? So, and you look at the essential characteristics of a thing in order to identify. If you illustrate, you're probably going to give examples. You're going to give a diagram. But you can't just say something is that. You're going to say, let me give you an example. For instance, when somebody does blah, blah. So you're going to give examples when you illustrate or diagrams. It can be literally like illustrations or just verbal examples. You elucidate. You make it clear again. You illustrate. Indicate is just to show, to select, to show how that, then you must just be able to pinpoint a certain aspect there. Interpret has to do with looking at a question and sort of explaining it to yourself and interpreting it in a certain way before you perhaps comment on it or say something about it. List is easy enough. You all know a grocery list. List, you can probably use bullets or something or numbers, but a list of names, facts, easy enough. Name is also name the things, might be name the aspects, the positive aspects mentioned by the author in this paragraph. Then you're going to say, he says that it's good for your health, it is good for your physique, or it's good for your general appearance, or what, good for your relationships. You mention, you name the things. A list is more cryptic, shorter, and it's just buy this, buy that. These are the people, just a list. Point out or present is also just to show, identify and show. There's nothing special about that one. To prove that something is the case, you're going to have to demonstrate the validity of something by giving a logical argument. How can you prove to me that it is dangerous to go into that forest? Prove it to me. Oh, well, there was, things took place and there were murders in that bush, blah, blah. You can give examples and so forth. And you've proven that it is not a safe place to go, giving me examples. Or by a logical argument, if you go in there, you're going to be faced with baboons, so you're going to be faced with certain animals which are dangerous by definition. To reflect on something, of course, means to think deeply about something. And I'm giving you a note, and this is not an instruction word. It's just something to take note of. And that's the word critically. If you are asked to discuss something, like I've said before, you are just going to pack it out for me, discuss it nicely. Now I know exactly what this is all about. But critically means that while I'm unpacking this thing for you, I'm also being critical. I'm judging. I'm saying that it's bad, or it's good, or it's preferable, or something. There's always a judgment going along with it. It means that you should evaluate the pros and the cons. Okay, you're going to have to look at it very critically. Look at it not only from a certain biased point of view, but from many points of view. And then you have a judgment about it. You either approve or you disapprove of the subject, and you substantiate why you feel that way. And that should equip you with the necessary instruction words. Just remember those and think about it before you answer a question.